The massive space station Kepler hung in the void like a metal city. Ships from across the galaxy gathered around it, each one more impressive than the last. The Altarian fighters danced between asteroids with grace that made watching them feel like art. Their silver hulls caught starlight as they moved faster than most eyes could follow. The Thraxian dreadnoughts came next. These giant ships looked like floating fortresses covered in weapon ports. Each one could destroy a small moon without breaking a sweat. Their captains spoke in deep, rumbling voices that made the station's metal walls vibrate. Then came the Zephyrians with their ghost ships. These vessels appeared and disappeared like smoke, phasing in and out of reality itself. Nobody really understood how their technology worked, but everyone feared it. 12 different alien species had brought their finest warships to this gathering. This was the biggest military exercise the galaxy had ever seen. Everyone wanted to show off their power and prove who had the strongest fleet. That's when the human ship arrived. The UES Tortoise moved through space like an old truck on a highway full of race cars. It was big, bulky, and slow. Really slow. Where other ships cut through space like knives, the Tortoise pushed through it like a heavy rock sinking in water. Its gray hull looked plain and boring next to the colorful, sleek alien vessels. Admiral Vexitar of the Hegemony Fleet took one look at the human ship and started laughing. His forearms waved in the air as he pointed at it through the viewing port. "Look at that thing," he said, his voice echoing through the command center. "It looks like a cargo ship got lost and wandered into a war zone. Are the humans serious? That turtle couldn't catch a sick planet, let alone fight in a real battle." Other alien officers joined in the laughter. They had heard stories about humans, but this was their first time seeing human military technology up close. The stories must have been wrong, they thought. How could such a slow, ugly ship be dangerous? Captain Elena Vasquez sat quietly in her command chair aboard the Tortoise. She was a small woman with dark hair and calm brown eyes. She listened to the alien communications chatter, hearing every joke and insult they made about her ship. Her crew looked at her, waiting for orders, but she just smiled slightly. "Let them laugh," she said softly. "They'll understand soon enough." The Tortoise took its position in the formation. Its engines made a low, steady humming sound, not the sharp whine of the fast ships or the deep roar of the big ones. Just a patient, constant hum that seemed to say, "I'm not in a hurry. I have all the time in the world." The war games were about to begin. The war games started with a bright flash of energy that lit up the darkness of space. Dozens of alien warships burst into action like angry wasps from a broken nest. The Altarian fighters moved so fast they looked like silver, streaks of light. The massive Thraxian ships fired their plasma cannons, creating beautiful but deadly light shows that painted space in bright colors. The Tortoise sat in the middle of all this chaos like a rock in a river. While other ships danced and fought, around it, the human vessel just moved forward slowly and steadily. It didn't try to dodge or run or show off. It just kept going at its own pace. "Look at that pathetic thing," laughed Commander Zix of the Catherian fleet. His ship was sleek and fast, covered in energy weapons that could melt steel. "It's not even trying to fight. This will be easy." 3 Catherian frigates swooped down on the Tortoise like hawks attacking a mouse. Their energy beams lit up space as they fired everything they had at the slow human ship. The weapons hit the Tortoise directly, and everyone expected to see it explode into pieces. But something strange happened instead. The energy beams hit the ship's hull and just disappeared. The metal didn't melt or break. Instead, it started to glow with a soft, warm light. The glow got brighter with each hit, but the ship itself looked perfectly fine. "What the hell?" Commander Zix stared at his weapon readings. According to his computers, his beams were hitting the target, but they weren't doing any damage at all. Captain Vasquez's calm voice came over the communication channel. "Adaptive shielding," she said simply. "We learned from our first galactic war that speed isn't everything. Sometimes it's better to take a hit and learn from it." The Catherian ships fired again, using different types of weapons. Laser beams, plasma bolts, and particle cannons all struck the Tortoise. Each time the ship's hull absorbed the energy and glowed brighter. The human vessel didn't even slow down. "This is impossible," Commander Zix whispered. His best weapons were useless against this slow, ugly ship. His frigates backed away, confused and scared. The other alien commanders watched from their ships. Most of them laughed and called it a lucky trick. After all, what good was defense if you couldn't fight back? The humans had built a ship that could take a beating. But so what? It was still slow and couldn't hurt anyone. The tortoise continued moving forward through the battlefield. Behind it, the space where the energy weapons had been absorbed seemed to shimmer slightly like heat waves rising from hot ground. But nobody paid attention to that small detail. They should have. 3 days passed in the war games. The alien ships continued their deadly dance across the battlefield, showing off their speed and power. They raced between asteroids, fired their weapons, and tried to prove who was the strongest. Everyone was having fun except for one small problem. Their ships were starting to break down. It began with small things. A Thraxian dreadnought found that its main cannon took 3 seconds longer to charge up. An Altarian fighter noticed its navigation system giving slightly wrong directions. A Zephyrian phase ship flickered when it tried to become invisible, staying solid for a moment too long. Just normal wear and tear, the alien commanders told themselves. Ships break down during long exercises. 2 weeks into the war games, the alien fleets were falling apart. What had started as small problems had become big disasters. Ships that were supposed to be the pride of their civilizations were now limping through space like wounded animals. The Thraxian dreadnoughts, once so powerful and scary, couldn't aim their weapons properly anymore. Their targeting computers kept making mistakes, shooting at empty space while enemy ships flew right past them. The massive cannons that could destroy planets were now as useful as broken toys. The Altarian fighters had it even worse. Their beautiful, graceful movements had turned clumsy and slow. Their engines would speed up when they wanted to slow down, and turn left when they wanted to turn right. Several had crashed into asteroids because their navigation systems told them the rocks weren't there. The Zephyrian ghost ships couldn't turn invisible anymore. Every time they tried to phase out of reality, they would flicker back into view like broken light bulbs. Their mysterious technology, which had made them feared across the galaxy, was now completely useless. But the tortoise was doing just fine. In fact, it was doing better than fine. The slow human ship moved through the battlefield like it owned the place. The cloud of metal pieces around it had grown much larger, spreading out in all directions like a spider's web made of tiny floating robots. Admiral Vextar was getting desperate. His own command ship was starting to have problems, too. The artificial intelligence that helped him make battle decisions was giving him stupid advice. His communication systems kept cutting out at the worst moments. Even his coffee machine was making terrible coffee. "This is enough," he shouted at Captain Vasquez during another communication call. "Tell me what you're doing to our ships right now, or I'll consider this an act of war." Captain Vasquez smiled for the first time since the games began. "Admiral, we're not doing anything to your ships. We're doing something for them. Our nanites don't just disable your systems, they study them, learn how they work, and then make them better. The problem is, better, from a human point of view, might not be what you expect." She paused and looked directly at the camera. "You see, your ships are designed to be fast and powerful, but they're not designed to learn from their mistakes. Our nanites are teaching your systems to be more like human technology. More careful, more thoughtful, more patient." As she spoke, more alien ships reported system failures. Their advanced computers were starting to think like humans instead of aliens. And human thinking, as it turned out, was very different from what the aliens were used to. The invisible web was almost complete. But the problems got worse. By the 3rd day, engines were stuttering. Weapon systems were missing their targets. Communication channels were full of static. The proud alien fleets that had started the games with perfect formation were now struggling to keep their ships working properly. The tortoise kept moving through all of this chaos. It hadn't gotten any faster, but it also hadn't broken down. If anything, it seemed to be working better than before. The ship's hull still glowed softly from all the energy it had absorbed, and strange pieces of metal floated around it like a small cloud. Admiral Vextar called Captain Vasquez on the Yao communication channel. His forearms were crossed and his voice was angry. "Human, what are you doing to our ships?" he demanded. "Our systems are failing left and right, but your old bucket of bolts is fine. What kind of trick is this?" Captain Vasquez appeared on the screen, still calm and peaceful. "No tricks, Admiral. We're just using nanite deployment systems and adaptive technology integration, standard human equipment." The alien commanders looked at each other. They had never heard of these technologies before, but they were too proud to admit it. Surely the primitive humans couldn't have anything that advanced. But there was one alien who wasn't too proud to ask questions. Kethra was a young Altarian analyst working on Admiral Vextar's command ship. She had been watching the battlefield very carefully, and she noticed something that scared her. The floating metal pieces around the tortoise weren't random junk. They were moving in patterns, spreading out across the battlefield like an invisible web. And every ship that flew through that web started having problems. "Admiral," she said, quietly, "I think we need to look at this more carefully. The debris field isn't just floating there. It's following the other ships." But Admiral Vextar was too angry to listen to a junior officer. The war games continued, and the invisible web kept growing larger. Admiral Vextar had heard enough. He called together all the alien fleet commanders for an emergency meeting. Their faces appeared on his main screen, each one looking angry and scared. "This human ship is making fools of us all," he said, his forearms waving wildly. "Our advanced technology is being beaten by some slow turtle with flying dust around it. This ends now." Commander Zix nodded his head. "My ships can barely fly straight anymore. Whatever those humans are doing, we need to stop it before it gets worse." "Then we attack together," Admiral Vextar declared. "All of us, at the same time. Even that strange human technology can't handle the combined firepower of 12 different fleets. We'll blast that ugly ship into pieces." The alien commanders agreed. They gathered every working ship they had left and formed a massive attack formation. Hundreds of vessels surrounded the tortoise from all sides. Energy weapons charged up with angry bright lights, missile tubes loaded with their most powerful explosives. This would be the biggest attack in the history of the war games. "Fire everything," Admiral Vextar shouted. Space lit up like a miniature sun. Energy beams of every color shot toward the human ship. Plasma bolts, laser cannons, quantum torpedoes, phase disruptors, and weapons that didn't even have names all hit the tortoise at exactly the same moment. The light was so bright that everyone had to look away. When it faded, they expected to see nothing but empty space where the human ship had been. But the tortoise was still there. Not only was it still there, it was glowing brighter than ever before. The ship's hull had absorbed every single attack and turned the energy into a beautiful warm light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Then something impossible happened. The tortoise began to fire back. But it wasn't using human weapons. It was using perfect copies of every weapon that had just hit it. Altarian plasma bolts shot out from its hull, followed by Thraxian quantum torpedoes. Zephyrian phase cannons materialized and fired at their creators. Catherian energy beams struck the ships that had originally fired them. Every species found themselves facing their own weapons, but somehow these copies were better than the originals. They were more accurate, more powerful, and more deadly. "How is this possible?" Commander Zix screamed as his own plasma cannons destroyed 2 of his frigates. Captain Vasquez's voice came through the communication channel, still calm and peaceful. "We call it learning by doing, Commander. Thank you for the free weapons demonstration. Our nanites have been taking notes." The alien fleet scattered, in panic, but their own perfected weapons chased them through space. The alien commanders sat in stunned silence. Half of their fleets were damaged or destroyed by their own weapons. The other half were hiding behind asteroids, afraid to come out and face the slow human ship that had somehow become the most dangerous thing in the battlefield. Admiral Vexitar's command ship limped toward the neutral zone where ships could talk safely. His forearms shook with anger and fear. "Human," he called out to Captain Vasquez. "What is that thing you're flying? This isn't fair. You're cheating." Captain Vasquez appeared on the communication screen. Behind her, the bridge of the tortoise, looked surprisingly normal. No fancy technology, no glowing computers, just humans working quietly at simple control panels. "We're not cheating, Admiral," she said calmly. "We're just using what we have. Would you like to know what the tortoise really is?" All the alien commanders leaned forward. They needed to understand what they were facing. "The tortoise isn't really a warship," Captain Vasquez explained. "It's a technological analysis and adaptation platform. Think of it as a floating research laboratory that learns by fighting. Every weapon that hits us, every system we encounter, every piece of technology we see, we study it, understand it, and make it better." Commander Zix felt sick to his stomach. "You mean you've been studying our weapons this whole time?" "Not just studying them," Captain Vasquez replied. "Improving them. Our nanites don't just copy your technology. They fix the problems your engineers couldn't solve. They make everything more efficient, more accurate, more powerful. The weapons we fired at you were what your own weapons could become if they were built by humans." The alien commanders realized the horrible truth. All their military secrets, their most advanced technology, their carefully guarded weapon designs, the humans now knew everything. Not only that, the humans had made better versions of everything. "This is impossible," whispered Admiral Vexitar. "How can one ship do all this?" "Because we built it to be patient," Captain Vasquez said. "Other species build ships to be fast or strong or sneaky. We built the tortoise to be smart. Every battle makes it smarter. Every attack makes it more dangerous. Time is on our side." Kethra, the young Altarian analyst, finally spoke up. "Captain, if your ship can do all this, why haven't humans conquered the galaxy already?" Captain Vasquez smiled. "Who says? We haven't. We just do it differently than you expect." The alien commanders looked at each other with growing fear. If this slow, ugly ship was just a research vessel, what were the real human warships like? They were afraid to find out. Captain Vasquez decided it was time to show the aliens what human warfare really looked like. The tortoise began moving in a way that made no sense to alien military thinking. Instead of attacking the strongest ships first, it ignored them completely. Instead of chasing the fast ships, it let them run away. Instead of trying to win quickly, it started playing what humans called the long game. The human ship used its new understanding of every alien vessel to do something no alien commander had ever seen before. It began separating the enemy fleets, cutting them off from each other one by one. The tortoise didn't need to catch the fast ships. It just needed to control where they could go. Using its cloud of nanites, the human ship created invisible barriers in space. Any alien ship that tried to fly through these areas would find its systems going crazy. Their engines would slow down, their weapons would stop working, and their communications would cut out. The aliens could run anywhere they wanted as long as they stayed exactly where the humans wanted them to be. "This is impossible," Commander Zix said as he watched his fastest fighter try to escape. The small ship could fly at incredible speeds, but every time it tried to leave the area, its engines would suddenly fail. The pilot had no choice but to turn back. How can something so slow control something so fast? Kethra had been studying the human tactics carefully. She finally understood what was happening. "Commander, the humans aren't trying to catch us. They're herding us, like farmers herding sheep." Admiral Vextar felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "Look at the battlefield," Kethra said, pointing to her tactical display. "Every time one of our ships tries to escape, the nanites force it back toward the center. We're not fighting the tortoise. We're trapped by it." The alien commanders realized she was right. Their ships were being pushed into smaller and smaller areas of space. They could still move around, but they couldn't leave. The tortoise sat at the edge of their prison like a patient guard, slowly tightening the walls. "Why don't they just finish us off?" asked Commander Zix. Captain Vasquez answered over the open channel. "Because we're still learning from you. Every move you make, every desperate plan you try, every new tactic you think of, our nanites are watching and taking notes. You're not just our prisoners. You're our teachers." The aliens realized they were trapped in a nightmare. The slower, they were defeated. the more dangerous the humans became. As the war games entered their final week, something new began to happen. The alien commanders noticed that small objects throughout the system were starting to move. Things they had ignored for weeks were suddenly coming to life. "What are those things?" Admiral Vexter asked, pointing at his tactical display. Dozens of small dots were moving toward the battlefield. They had been floating in space for so long that everyone had forgotten about them. Kethra checked her records. "According to our scans, those are human sensor platforms. They were already here when we arrived. We thought they were just simple observation devices." The small objects moved slowly but steadily toward the battle area. As they got closer, the aliens could see that they weren't just sensors at all. Each one was the size of a small building, covered in mechanical arms and glowing with soft blue light. "Captain Vasquez," Admiral Vextar called over the communication channel. "What are those things?" The human captain smiled. "Those are our manufacturing platforms, Admiral. They've been busy while we've been talking." "Manufacturing what?" Commander Zix demanded. "More nanites," Captain Vasquez replied simply. "Lots. More nanites, based on all the data we've collected from your ships over the past few weeks." The alien commanders watched in horror as the platforms began releasing clouds of tiny robots into space. But these weren't the same nanites that had been studying their ships. These new ones were bigger, faster, and designed for specific purposes. Some were built to copy Altarian technology. Others were made to understand Thraxian systems. Each type was perfectly designed to handle one species' technology. "You see," Captain Vasquez explained, "the tortoise wasn't working alone. It was coordinating with our entire network. Every piece of space debris you ignored, every disabled ship you left floating, every harmless human installation in this system, they were all part of our research network." Kethra's eyes went wide as she understood. "The whole system is one big laboratory." "Exactly," Captain Vasquez nodded. "You thought you were fighting one slow ship, but you were really fighting an entire system that has been quietly studying and adapting to your every move for weeks." The manufacturing platforms continued releasing nanites. Soon, the entire battlefield was filled with clouds of tiny robots, each one designed to perfectly counter a specific alien technology. The space around them looked like a glittering silver fog. Admiral Vextar realized they had walked into a trap that had been months in the making. The humans hadn't just brought one research ship to the war games. They had turned the entire system into a giant research facility, and the aliens had been the test subjects. Admiral Vextar looked at the silver clouds of nanites surrounding his fleet and made a desperate decision. "All commanders, listen to me," he shouted over the communication channel. "We have one chance left. If we're going to lose anyway, let's at least go down fighting." The alien commanders knew he was right. Their ships were trapped, their technology was compromised, and they were surrounded by millions of tiny robots designed to counter everything they had. But they were warriors from proud civilizations. They wouldn't surrender without a final battle. "We attack together," Admiral Vexitar declared. "All 12 species all at once. We use every different fighting style we have. The humans might have learned our individual tactics, but they can't have learned how we fight as one united force." It was a smart plan. Each alien species had completely different ways of fighting. The Altarians were fast and graceful. The Thraxians were slow and powerful. The Zephyrians used tricks and deception. 12 different approaches to warfare had never been combined before. The alien fleets moved together in perfect coordination. Fast ships covered slow ships. Big ships protected small ships. Invisible ships attacked from hidden positions while visible ships drew attention. It was the most beautiful and deadly military formation the galaxy had ever seen. For a moment it looked like the plan might work. The tortoise seemed confused by the complex attack. Its nanites buzzed around frantically, trying to analyze 12 different fighting styles at the same time. The human ship's calm, steady movement became jerky and uncertain. "We're doing it!" Commander Zix shouted as his weapons finally hit their target. "It can't handle all of us together." But then Captain Vasquez's voice came over the communication channel, and she was laughing. "Very good, Admiral," she said. You've just taught us the most important lesson of all, how to make 12 different species work together as one. Our nanites weren't trying to stop your individual attacks. They were studying your coordination. The aliens felt their hope die as they realized what she meant. The humans hadn't been overwhelmed by the combined attack. They had been learning from it. You see, Captain Vasquez continued, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know that the hardest part isn't defeating an enemy. It's getting allies to work together. You've just shown us how to solve that problem. The tortoise began moving again, but now it was using the coordination patterns it had learned from the aliens. The human ship was no longer fighting like one vessel. It was fighting like 12 ships in perfect harmony with each other. The war games officially ended with the tortoise achieving complete control over the battlefield. Every alien ship was disabled but intact. No one had been killed, but every commander felt like they had died a little inside. They had been completely outmatched by a single slow human vessel. Captain Vasquez called for a final meeting with all the alien commanders. Their faces appeared on the communication screen, each one showing a mixture of fear, anger, and confusion. I suppose you want to gloat about your victory, Admiral Vexistar said bitterly. His forearms hung at his sides in defeat. No, Admiral, Captain Vasquez replied gently. I want to explain something important, something you need to understand about humans. She stood up from her command chair and walked closer to the camera. Behind her, the bridge of the tortoise still looked simple and ordinary, nothing like the advanced alien ships with their glowing computers and fancy displays. You all came here thinking that the fastest ship or the strongest ship would win, she continued. But humans learned something different during our first wars in space. We learned that in a galaxy full of species with better technology, superior speed, and greater raw power, we needed a different approach. Kethra leaned forward, listening carefully. What approach? Patience, Captain Vasquez said simply. Adaptation, and the willingness to learn from every encounter. The tortoise represents our true military philosophy. We don't try to be the strongest or the fastest. We try to be the most persistent. We never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never stop improving. Commander Zix felt a chill run through his body. Captain, if this ship can do all these things, how many more like it do you have? Captain Vasquez smiled, but it wasn't a mean smile. It was almost sad. Commander, I need to tell you something that might scare you. The tortoise isn't one of our warships. The alien commander stared at her in shock. This is a research vessel, she explained. Its job is to study and learn, not to fight wars. You've never seen our actual military assets. And after today's data collection, you never want to. Admiral Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. What do you mean? I mean that everything we learned here today, all your technologies, all your tactics, all your secrets, this information is already being sent to our real fleet. Ships that were built for war, not research. Ships that don't need to be patient because they already know how to win. The tortoise slowly turned and began its journey home, leaving behind a galaxy that finally understood the terrifying truth about humanity.